going on, Four-Eyed fans? More importantly, Four-Eyed IDP fans. Welcome to Worth and Frame, the IDP edition here at fantasyandframes.com. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards, and with me this week, Mike Wallert from 4for4 Fantasy Football. Mike, how you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you tonight?
Doing all right. Great to talk some football on the defensive side of the ball. Nate Markham may or may not be joining us a little bit later. He is tied up right now. So with that, we're just going to take you through some news, some people who we think have great matchups this week, and do our Oklahoma drill, where we go one-on-one, just telling the viewers and listeners why we think a player that we're advocating for is a player that you should be potentially starting this week. So with that, let's get into some news this week. Look, let's start with today. It was today, or is it today, or was it late last night? Jalen Smith got released by the Cowboys.
Yeah, it was late last night. Yeah, nice Tuesday night news dump while we're just enjoying the baseball game, and then all of a sudden you see Schefter's tweet, Jalen Smith released, and you're looking for the check mark to make sure that you're not getting duped by like a darn Schefter or
right.
But clear check mark and then there's the release.
Crazy. I thought going into the season, Jalen Smith would have a bounce back year from last year. Reason being, opportunity. Not so much that he was going to improve upon or do anything better, but I trusted him to be on the field more than Leighton Vander Esch, given Vander Esch's recent injury history that he's had the past few seasons. Apparently, the Cowboys don't see it that way. Vander Esch apparently is playing well. Health is fine. And they decided, Jalen Smith, we're going to eat the $16 million that we're going to have to pay, by releasing you, and to send you on your way. Rumors have him going to Green Bay. I don't know if that's been fully set in stone yet, but they're working towards a deal. Is that right, Mike?
Working towards a deal, yeah. I don't think that thing's been finalized, but yeah, that's where it's where he's looking to land.
Yeah, if you haven't, check over on Mike's Twitter page, Mike_Warlord on Twitter, put together a great post about his thoughts on Jalen Smith potentially going to Green Bay and the impact that could have on the linebacking core there. So head over to his Twitter profile at Mike_Wallert. And for the Cowboys, look, apparently Leighton Vander Esch and Keanu Neal, those are the linebackers that they're going to be rolling with. Now, Jabril Cox got some great hype over the.
Don't forget about Parsons.
Well, do you think Micah Parsons is still going to rotate in that linebacking core? Or do you think he's going to be going more towards defensive?
No, he went back to off-ball linebacker this past week.
Did he?
He played 48 snaps at linebacker and only like 15 on edge.
Is that because Gregory came back into play, or?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Parsons went back to calling the plays. He's back to wearing the dot, back to linebacker.
Man, it's almost like this defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys wants to keep everybody confused as to where everybody's supposed to be and like make offenses have to figure them out.
It seems to be working. They actually have a pretty good defense right now.
No, they really do. It's they have a high-powered offense. They have a really good defense.
Yep.
I think I saw something today on Instagram or whatever where Micah Parsons was like, "I don't want to be characterized as an edge rusher or linebacker. I'm a football player." I'm like, when it comes to renegotiating your next contract, you want to pick the one that's going to pay you the most money. So
So I think with Parsons kind of returning back to kind of his normal role, I think you'll probably see. And you know what? I'm going to try not to guess, but if my instant reaction is Neal once he's back from COVID probably gets that 70-75% snap, and then Vander Esch probably goes back to that more base role that he was playing. I think he was only at 30-40%, probably not even 40. I think it was like 30% of the snap. So that's kind of how I see kind of things falling back.
Okay, so you're thinking more of Keanu and Micah Parsons, like it was basically to start the year.
Yep.
Okay. What do we got from Panthers camp over here? Big news for your Panthers fan, right, Mike?
My Panthers or my Browns, man.
No, if you are a Panthers fan.
Oh yeah. If you're a Panthers fan, they got Stefan Gilmore, big get. I thought, and again with some of the confusion, I thought he was released.
Right.
So, and then all of a sudden he's traded, and I'm like, wait, so did Schefter get? So I don't even know what's going on, but yeah, Gilmore traded to Carolina, which I think is a bit of a power move by Bill to put him in Brady's division. So That's a bit of a boss move right there. Trading him over to Brady's division for literally like next to nothing. But solid defender.
Yeah.
Solid defender. He's been thrown at, I think he was thrown at over 90 times between 2018 and 2019. So I think Panthers are probably going to play a little bit more man now that they just traded for Henderson. They got Gilmore, Horn once he comes back off of IR. So building a little bit of a nice secondary. We'll see if Henderson bounces back, because he was playing awful this year. So I wonder if a change of scenery will help him out a little bit.
Something tells me anybody and everybody is going to be trying to get out of Jacksonville in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, he went from winless to undefeated. So you know you're going to get a little spring in your step.
And I feel so bad for Dan Arnold, man. What a way to go. But it's interesting. Matt Rule comes in, Carolina offensive guru in college, and I think the first draft he had as a head coach was all defensive.
All defense. Yep.
Last year, the first pick was Jason Horn. This guy, he knows stuff.
he knows football. He knows football.
Yeah, he knows football. It's amazing. It's not just a gimmick. He actually can do things offensively as well as knows how to manage a team's roster. It's fantastic. Speaking of managing rosters in your fantasy roster, Kenneth Murray goes on IR with an ankle injury. I don't think it's season-ending per se, but he is going to be out for a few weeks. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody fantasy relevant in this linebacking core, do you think, Mike? Is Kaiser White somebody that you're interested in plugging and playing? Is he basically the only guy there, or is there somebody else that you're interested in?
I like White or Tranquil. I think both of those guys are probably going to be the guys to own. Murray had already been losing snaps, so even before his injury last week, he played on like half the snaps last week before the injury. So he was already ceding some snaps. I don't know if it's a matter of just hasn't gotten the hang of the system, or he's a combination of just playing bad. But yeah, Tranquil had 89% of the snaps Monday, Kaiser White 77%. And at this point with linebacker, you almost have to look at the guys that are playing even in that 70% range. You can't be picky anymore and just look for guys that are playing 95% or more of the snaps. You got to pick up some of these guys that are playing 75, 80% because they're useful. They're putting in production. And with the way linebackers have been falling off injury wise, I know Shaq Thompson is also hurt. So It's another one in Carolina that's hurt. You got to pick some of these guys up. So yeah, I'd probably go with Tranquil. And then if he's not available, definitely Kaiser White.
Heading over to the nation's capital, John Bostic, their middle linebacker, he's on IR, and I believe he is out for the season with a pec injury.
Yep.
Head coach Ron Rivera did say that rookie Jamin Davis is going to see an uptick in usage. They've been moving him, when I've been looking at the snap counts, they've been moving him on both sides of the field. They haven't really used him too much in the middle. That's obviously kind of what people were assuming that they were going to use him for when they drafted him in the first round. It's going to be interesting to see. I was looking at his coverage grades and his tackling grades over at Pro Football Focus. Not like the greatest performer, in terms of like missed tackles and as far as his metrics over there. But you look at this; it's a small sample size, so it's going to be interesting to see what this uptick in targets or uptick in usage is going to be for him this week. What about JPP? We saw, was it Tryon? I forget his hyphenated name, but the rookie came on in relief. Shuyoka.
Shiroka? Yeah, just Tryon. So it looks like Pierre-Paul did return to a practice, so he did return to practice today. Probably going to be questionable, but he does look like he could be on track to play. So it's always good to see him returning to practice. But yeah, when you got to back up, and when you got someone like Tryon that's able to just kind of come in and wreak havoc, you can kind of move your guy along a little bit at a better pace to make sure that he's healthy.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into some prime matchups at the defensive line, linebacker, and defensive back position. I'll start with defensive line. Give me Josh Allen for the Jacksonville Jaguars this week going against the Tennessee Titans. You look at like Taylor Lewan and two other both of their interior guards last week, all left to get versus the Jets due to injury. They're battling injury. They're severely underperforming. That offensive line is for the Tennessee Titans. John Franklin Myers for the New York Jets, who up until last week I had no idea he existed, put up 4 total tackles, 2 TFLs, sack, a quarterback hit, for a total of 20 fantasy points and IDP 1-2-3 scoring. If John Franklin Myers can do that, I think Josh Allen more than certainly can do that as well against Tennessee. This Tennessee team is on the downward. So I don't care that AJ Brown is back at practice and Julio Jones still isn't. There is something. They were so efficient, and I think people got spoiled by their efficiency on offense the past few years when Ryan Tannehill finally came under his own and Arthur Smith was calling plays. But for whatever reason, something has fundamentally gone awry. They can't protect Ryan Tannehill anymore. And yes, Ryan Tannehill can scramble, but when the Jets look like the 84 Bears or whatever, 85 Bears last week, it makes me concerned as far as what this Tennessee offensive line can do. So give me Josh Allen in a prime matchup this week. Who you got at linebacker and defensive back, Mike?
And I'm sorry, the defensive line, linebacker, what did you say? I'm sorry?
Linebacker and defensive back.
So linebacker, I've got Isaiah Simmons against the 49ers this week. 4 games of double-digit fantasy points, playing for the most part the majority of the snaps, providing big plays. He's got an interception, 2 forced fumbles, 2 defended passes already this season, averaging right around 0.27 points per snap, which is a pretty solid rate. And is also recording about a 13% tackle rate on his snap. So been really solid, real efficient. And he's facing a 49ers offense that is actually yielding the second most points to the inside linebacker position. And an opposing inside linebackers also forced a fumble in 2 games, as well as defended a pass in 2 games. So, and also allowing 20 tackles per game to inside linebackers. So, combination of tackles and big plays, I think there's some big upside. He's my LB10 this week, so really like Isaiah Simmons. I got a defensive line also, Max Crosby against the Bears. Crosby has been lining up as their left end, so that puts him in position to lining up on Jermaine Ifedi, who is just average. He's not horrible, not a turnstile, but just average. Had a little bit of an easier time last week against Detroit. He just played 20 pass block snaps, but Crosby has been a beast. And I think Ifedi's just going to have issues. He's got a similar quickness, some similar moves, someone like Jadeveon Clowney and Von Miller, and he can use his hands to get away and swipe away and get over any type of leverage a blocker may have. So, and Crosby, 37% pass rush win rate. So, I mean, he's beating the blocks in less than 2 seconds. Already has 30 total quarterback pressures and has 11 hits. So he's producing pressure at a pretty consistent rate. And I've got Crosby as my DL9 this week.
And for those people out there who are worried about like, oh, well, the Justin Fields is the quarterback of the Bears now. He can scramble and Crosby can't surely go hunt down. Did you see week 1 when he hunt down Lamar Jackson and basically,
yeah, he's quick. He's fast. Yeah. He's deceptively quick.
He can do some stuff. That's probably the biggest oversimplification I could ever make. Yeah, he can do some stuff.
And I don't care how fast you are if the defensive line is getting into your backfield in a second and a half, you could have all the speed in the world. You don't have time to react.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just by any chance, would you happen to have a defensive back people should be paying attention to this week? Or if not, we can do that a little bit later. Not a problem.
Defensive back.
I didn't. We can have a debate here for defensive back. Trayvon Diggs. He's the hot name. He's the hot commodity. He has an interception in every game he's played this week. I know cornerback normally isn't the sexiest of IDP picks here, but they're going against the Giants. Daniel Jones, Mr. Danny Turnover versus Danny Dimes. Do you think that he could keep that hot streak going in this NFC East divisional matchup this week?
Well, it's all about the number change to number 7. So, but if he's interceptions are obviously tough to predict. So if he's covering, I think he'll probably spend most of his time probably on Galladay. So, I mean, with all the injuries at the wide receiver core, I'd have to imagine he's probably going to be thrown at least 6 or 7 times.
Right.
I think he's probably going to be following Galladay, I think. But even still, he's going to get thrown at. You just can't not throw at somebody especially when Galladay is probably going to be your top receiver, considering they're still having the issues with Shepard and Slayton. So, I mean, at least you have potentially a chance at tackles. But if he's making a play on the ball, whether it's a defended pass or an interception, then not necessarily the tackles are going to be there. But Diggs having a good start of the season. You can't overlook that. I mean, but again, it's some of those big plays that could be unsustainable over the course of an entire season.
Right.
But Giants, pretty good matchup though.
Now going to Buffalo, Jordan Poyer was out last week. Micah Hyde, his counterpart in that safety backfield, has been playing very well. If Jordan Poyer is out this week, can you fire up Micah Hyde on your roster this week and feel pretty confident about that?
I think so.
Hyde is Kansas City this week, which should be a
really good matchup. Yeah, really good matchup. I think you can play pretty much any defensive back against the Chiefs, especially the corners. But yeah, I think with Hyde, he's someone that is kind of a plug and play if Poyer's out. It looks like he's going to play, but yeah, Hyde's actually been pretty good, just even in his own right. So he's been relatively productive. I think he's produced double-digit fantasy points. I think in all of his games, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been actually pretty productive this season anyway.
Nice. All right, before we get into our Oklahoma drill for this week's episode, let's talk a little bit about our sponsor, Dynasty Pandemic. Head over to dynastypandemic.com. Follow them on Twitter at Dynasty Pandemic, and follow Clay, who runs up Dynasty Pandemic at @dpandemic_Clay. Look, you go to this website, you literally jump on their chatter feed, which is on their homepage. Just start talking shop. Ask questions, answer questions, interact, make friends. It's a great hospitable environment for fantasy football, which I thought those places don't exist anymore, but they do over at dynastypandemic.com. You got brands like Dynasty Trades HQ, Dynasty and Chill, Dynasty Warzone, Debbie Marketplace, Dynasty Happy Hour, us. They have an app on Google and Apple. Whether you're an established brand wanting to branch out, whether you're an up and coming brand wanting to get a name for yourself, they're all about self-promotion over there and promoting other people to help grow this industry and grow this community even bigger than it already is. So head over to dynastypandemic.com today and follow them at Dynasty Pandemic. Great stuff going on over there. And with that, let's get into our Oklahoma drill. Let's get into our matchup first. We'll go defensive line. Let me pull up here. I'm going to take Charles Harris. That's right, because everybody.
Wait, huh? I thought I was taking Harris.
You are taking Harris. I wrote that backwards. You're taking Jason. Okay, fine. Fine. I totally messed that up. You're taking Charles Harris, and I'm taking Jason Owe, I believe is pronunciation. Mike, tell the folks why people should be excited about Charles Harris in Detroit.
Well, Charles Harris, really good matchup. So he should be lining up on Rashad Hill this week for most of his pass rush snaps. The good news for Hill is that he doesn't have to face Myles Garrett this week. But the bad news, he's actually still in a relatively poor matchup for him against a pretty solid pass rusher who's really come out of nowhere this season. Romeo Okwara out for the year, so I think a lot of that pass rush is going to fall on Harris. So, but for the most part, really good move set. His sack on Justin Fields, really quick spin move to get around the tackle to get to Justin Fields. So he has a really good move set. Again, one of the really big surprises, Romeo Okwara out. Harris generating a 16.2% quarterback pressure rate, beating his blockers to the tune of a 36% pass rush win rate. Last week, Hill was just bull rush, spun around. And you know what? If Harris can get to Justin Fields, I have no problem seeing he's going to have no problem getting to Kirk Cousins, who's not nearly as mobile. So if Hill gets flat-footed, out of position, it's pretty much all over. Hill's been responsible for 2 sacks and 18 total quarterback pressures. Granted, 10 came against Cleveland, but he had allowed 8 up until last week. So he had already been beat pretty consistently, even heading in to last week. So he's still just not really good at pass protection. Right now, according to Pro Football Focus, he is graded and ranked as the 71st tackle out of 73 tackles. So at least he's got those other two that are keeping him from in last place. But yeah, Harris, I think, is in a really good spot. Like I said, Romeo Cora out. Good matchup on the right side against Rashad Hill. So I think Harris is in for a pretty solid matchup this week.
So I'm going to tell you why Jason Wade is going to be the guy. Look, as somebody who completely foobarred that one, I totally agree with what you're just saying right here in terms of him being a great matchup. The Vikings are 29th in pass blocking. Like, this is like the Lions should be teeing off, I think, against this Vikings. That's putting it respectfully. Look, Jason Wade, as I am also prepared for this one. Look, he is the example of like a perfect storm. Right? He's not. Look, he doesn't have the greatest win percentage when it comes to beating blockers. He isn't leading the team in tackles. He isn't leading the team in sacks. He is one of the better pressure producers of this Baltimore Ravens defense. And I hear pressure is good when you're going against the worst ranked pass blocking unit in the NFL, and that is of the Indianapolis Colts, who the Ravens will be facing this week. Look, somebody put out a tweet the other day that people shouldn't rely on pressures as like a overarching metric of how you evaluate IDP players, specifically pass rushers. And to a certain degree, yeah, obviously you want to count on production. But eventually, at some point, you got to look at these pressures. You got to look at the people who are doing this. You got to look at the matchups, and you got to say to yourself, you know what? Who's going to put me in the best opportunity to make plays and therefore, for fantasy purposes, get you fantasy points? This is, again, one of the situations where he makes plays on the ball, he forces fumbles, he gets you fantasy point production, specifically speaking in IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring. He's had 1 week where he hasn't gotten you double-digit fantasy point production. Going against, again, a very porous offensive line of the Indianapolis Colts. I could see this getting pretty ugly this week against the Colts for Baltimore. So look for a way to have his way this week. That was probably
that's interesting. I've always been under the impression that sacks didn't necessarily. Someone actually wrote pressures aren't an indicator. That's pretty interesting because I've always thought I always look at pressures as a good indicator. If someone's generating a pretty decent pressure rate, at some point they'll learn. They'll learn to finish.
Yeah, let me pull this. I don't agree with the take. I just said I read it, I saw it, and I thought to myself, man, it's one of those things where, like, when you're thinking about fantasy point production for IDP. Look, at the end of the day, you're credited by the stats that you produce and fantasy points you can. And I get that, but you can't just look at a string of stats and say, oh well, the Diggs thing we were talking about earlier for the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. You can't bank on an interception every single game. For defensive end, you can't count on a sack every single game.
Right.
The ability to get to the ball and make a play is what you can count on, or you can track statistically over the course of a season. And eventually, people are going to hit home eventually.
For quarterbacks, if they're getting thrown at, that's going to put them in the best position to make best position to do something, whether it's defend a pass, whether it's intercept the ball or make a tackle. Same thing with the pressure.
Right. 100% agree.
And actually, that's not actually the worst take I've heard all day. I'm not going to mention it on air, but that's actually not the worst take that I've heard all day, though.
It has been a very, in the IDP circle, the past couple of days at least, it has been very toasty on fantasy Twitter. So
it has been. We've been, a little bit.
And
a little bit.
I tend, me personally, to look at many people's points of views, but I don't think that's being reciprocated by many people nowadays. So in terms of other people respecting other people's points of view. So it's, I have my piece, I'll say my piece, I'll give my advice, I'll do my thing and go about my business. And so with that, let's continue with our business here. And let's talk about the linebacker position. Patrick Queen for me, for the Ravens. and you're going to be taking Miles Jack for the Jaguars as opposed to the Jaguars, because we're not in the UK. Although they are playing in the UK, not this week, but the week after. So fun fact there. Why don't you start us off? Why should people be playing Miles Jack over Patrick Quinn this week, Mike?
Well, this is, again, kind of a sneak peek at my 4-for-4 matchup plays, because I actually wrote Miles Jack up this week. So Jack should be pretty busy with Tennessee and Derrick Henry. So anytime you can get a linebacker against the Titans and Derrick Henry, I think you're in a pretty good spot. And actually, as a surprise, I thought Jack was going to be in the kind of set up for a down year, especially since he was back to calling the plays. Because if you look, when he was calling the plays, his tackle efficiency wasn't very good. He was right around 9-10% on well over 1,000 snaps. So when Joe Schobert was there, it almost seemed like Joe Schobert calling the plays, directing everybody, was putting Jack in a really good position to make plays. So once he assumed that rollback, I'm thinking, okay, he's probably going to settle back in. But even wearing the dot, even calling the plays, he has been an efficient tackler, making the plays. Want to see more solo tackles, but he's still around the ball and still contributing those tackles. He's produced double-digit fantasy points in 3 of his 4 games. He's generating a 12.5% tackle rate, which is a pretty solid rate on his snap usage. More importantly, he's not missing tackles, unlike the guy you're going to be talking about here pretty soon. He actually doesn't have any missed tackles, but he has been broken off. He's been responsible for 2 broken tackles. So he's had the tackle, but it's been broken. So he is making the tackle and not missing. And he's definitely going to get tested, though, this week with broken tackles against Derrick Henry. But I digress there. But he's definitely going to have plenty of tackle opportunities. Opposing inside linebackers, averaging around 18 tackles a game. So, again, playing inside, outside. And 4 inside linebackers have recorded 9 or more tackles against the Titans, including Bobby Wagner's 20 just a few weeks ago. So I can see Miles Jack hitting at least 10 tackles this week in a pretty good matchup.
Look, it's it's hard to go against.
And I hate to do the dig because I was hoping you were going to go. I was hoping you were going to go first. So I had that teed up like you were going first. So, but I had to get that in there.
Nope, totally get it. Totally get it. So the person he is, of course, talking about is Patrick Queen. Again, it comes down to a volume situation. The Indianapolis Colts remembered last week that they have Jonathan Taylor, who is a running back who can run the ball on offense. And so with that increased usage in the running game, I think it's a situation where you're going to get volume heading Patrick Queen's way. Look, that's the thing, right? If you're going to miss a lot, you better have a lot of opportunities coming your way. That's what I see here with Patrick Queen. You may not get this great solo to assist numbers. The total tackle numbers, however, I believe are going to be your way there. The Colts started using Jonathan Taylor more. They're showcasing Marlon Mack more. Here is an interesting fact, though, that when I was doing my research here, I almost wanted to switch my linebacker, to be honest with you. And I know this is kind of like a hot take here, but when I'm looking at the rushing directions that the Colts kind of use or have when they're going on offense, the number of rushing attempts seems to lead them along the left tackle side, which kind of obviously veers away from the middle of the field where you would obviously expect a middle linebacker to do his damage. And believe it or not, Malik Harrison for the Ravens, who he's kind of like down there in terms of like snap percentage, has actually been doing pretty well. He's actually one of the better run stoppers, according to Pro Football Focus, for the Baltimore Ravens. So it's almost like the Colts are kind of like moving into position, right in the way of Malik Harrison's way, assuming that his snap counts can go up. He could be a sneaky play this week. But that being the case, even though a lot of their runs go towards left end and left tackle, it's a volume thing. The snap percentage is in Patrick Queen's favor. Give me Patrick Queen this week for this particular matchup. Again, another circumstance where you have good defense going against a bad offense. Everyone is going to feast, I believe, for the Baltimore Ravens. So fire up Patrick Queen this week. But if Malik Harrison does something this week, impressive, you heard it here. You heard it here, folks. Heard it here first. Let's finish off now with the defensive back position. And now you get a Raven this time, so congratulations. I'm going to take Andrew Wingard, free safety of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Mike, you'll take Chuck Clark. So let me start with Andrew Wingard. Look, free safeties, what's a free safety? A free safety plays in coverage, shocker. That's kind of what their MO is. He is actually second on the team, not just in the defensive back, but second on the team in total tackles. He's number one in total tackles, TFLs, and sacks amongst defensive backs. He's graded as their best run defense safety or defensive back on that defense. I hear having a good run stopper is great when you're going against an offense that has Derrick Henry on their team. Here's the thing. They kind of even though he plays free safety, he has been used closer to the line of scrimmage. He has been used to rush the passer in certain situations. And when he's gone, he's hit home. So in what I consider this matchup to be a very conservative game for the Titans offense, kind of what you saw last week, this offensive line for the Titans is going to have their hands full, regardless of, with this front seven, I believe, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which means they can't block everybody. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity for Wingard to get into the backfield and make some plays either at running back or getting to the quarterback. I know this is going to be this might be blasphemy to those Lions fans out there who are hardcore Tracy Walker truthers. This screams to me Tracy Walker. Free safety, yet plays all over the field, has great tackle numbers, which you would think would be the strong safety, but no, it's the free safety who's all over the place, making all the plays, making all the tackles. So Andrew Wingard, again, great matchup this week going against the Titans' run-heavy offense. Start him in your lineups this week. Chuck Clark, Ravens. Mike, why should we start him?
It's funny. I've always considered Chuck Clark just to kind of be milquetoast, just kind of meh. But he's actually rebounded pretty nicely after a relatively slow start. Had just 5 tackles in the first 2 games, but has 19 tackles in the last 2 games, including a sack and 2 tackles for loss. So he's starting to make plays. He has been targeted 12 times. He's actually making a play on the ball about 25% of the time if you look at it on his target. So he's got 3 defended passes. So he is definitely making a play on the ball when it's in his wake. Also, another thing in his favor, pass rushing. So if you're getting points for sacks, and he has a similar pass rush usage that he did in week 1, which I believe he had either 9 or 10 pass rush snaps. I think he has some pretty good sack upside. He's got a 27.8% pressure rate, which is pretty solid at the safety position. And again, as Jorge has noted, it's a pretty injured and depleted Indy offensive line. So if he gets through, then it's pretty much all over for Carson Wentz. Clark recording about a 9.2% tackle rate, which is actually pretty solid for a safety, and a 3-to-1 solo to assist ratio. So he's getting more of those solos than assists. So again, more fantasy points. So he could be cleaning up Patrick Queen's missed tackles. So if Queen doesn't clean up his tackling technique, so definitely has those tackle opportunities this week, and to dominate the tackle share for the Baltimore Ravens. So yeah, I got Chuck Clark as a pretty solid DB2 this week. Not overall, just as a second DB.
Right. If you were playing the defense streaming game for your fantasy leagues and those leagues that don't play IDP, which I don't know why you wouldn't play IDP, would you be running to get Baltimore this week given this matchup?
I would think Baltimore's already owned, but yes, if Baltimore is somehow on the waiver wire, yes, I am absolutely picking them up for the matchup this week.
All right, so we got a couple questions over on YouTube here on offense. Should I trade A.J. Brown and Chris Godwin for DK Metcalf and Javonte Williams? I have lots of receivers, need running backs for PPR.
if he's getting Metcalf and Williams and giving up Brown, I mean, Brown is hurt. I mean,
Brown is hurt. He has been underperforming this year. A lot of drops going his way. Chris Godwin, I feel, is the.
I think you might be giving up the better player in this draft in the trade, so maybe not.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I'd make that trade. I don't think Javonte, as long as Melvin Gordon's still there, you're not going to get that production that everybody's hoping for. So I would hold off on that.
I think you can do much better for a running back. If you're dealing AJ Brown and Godwin, I think you can do much better as a running back in return. So if you need a running back, yeah, I mean, for AJ Brown and Chris Godwin, I'd be looking at someone like Ezekiel Elliott in return from those two receivers. That's well within asking price for receivers of those caliber. Not a running back who's kind of still technically in a timeshare,
right? Or even like a Swift or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you know, guys who have done like something, but haven't been so dominant that their manager is like, oh well, they're there's no way we're going to trade these guys away. Like there's still wiggle room as we speak right now.
Yep.
I don't know if that's going to continue in a few weeks when their usage keeps going up and up. So for guys for like CEH or Swift, this would be the prime time to get those guys.
Yep.
For those wide receivers you mentioned. We got another question here from Breck PF: Woods, Waddle, or Hollywood Brown in PPR? I can't. We talked about this last hour. We can't quit Bobby Trees. I know it's Cooper Kupp's wide receiver core right now, but it's only a matter of time. I think he has a great game this week, tomorrow night on a short week. And as far as Waddle or Hollywood, give me Hollywood. Hollywood, let me see. I do so, Mike, at Fantasy and Frames, I do a weekly recap, and I put out some tweets lately, and I've written about Hollywood Brown he's a touchdown dependent guy. You take away his touchdowns, the yardage totals aren't really there. The targets, however, and the receptions this year have been increasing, though, which obviously helps for the PPR aspect here. Give me Waddle, give me Woods, and give me Hollywood this week, assuming that still continues. Again, look at the matchups. Woods going against Seattle. Seattle's defense is probably going to be worried about Cooper Kupp and Darrell Henderson. And we just spent the entire hour talking about how bad the Colts are. So look for Hollywood to have a good matchup this week against Indianapolis. So there we go. Cool. Mike, why don't you tell the folks where we can find your work?
Are we going to talk about our bust?
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, find me at 4for4. That is where I reside. That is where my work resides. 4for4.com. And actually, you know what? If you go to, I tweeted out, I might actually end up pinning it, but we actually have a 7-day free trial going on.
Okay.
No risk, no credit card. Sign up, get 7 free days. Check us out. If you like what you see, great, sign up. But if not, you don't need to worry about getting charged for something that like we all do. We all forget it to cancel our trials, and then next thing you know, you're being charged $60 because you forgot to cancel the trial. So yeah, we've got a 7-day free trial. Come check us out.
Nice. I'll make sure to put that on our Fantasy and Frames IDP articles just to give you guys a shout out for all the good work you do over there. All right, let's talk about busts. Let's
all right.
go here. I'll let you go first. Who's the bust this week that you're telling people? You know what? I guess let me back it up a second. When you're saying bust, are you saying like falling out of like the 1-2 discussion, or is this somebody who's really going to lie flat on their face?
Well, I think if I had better options, I might consider benching Jerome Baker this week. I have him probably I have expectations as him as more of an LB3 or 4 against Tampa Bay, as opposed to his usual LB1, LB2 type numbers, just because Tampa Bay so far has been a horrible matchup for inside linebackers. They're allowing just 5 tackles a game to inside linebackers and are allowing the least amount of fantasy points to the inside linebacker position. So if I have better options, I am definitely considering benching Jerome Baker. And actually, it's kind of funny. I've been getting I got some questions regarding Denver's safety Stearns.
Sorry, continue. Yeah.
He's played 35 total snaps. He had a huge game on 7 snaps. That is the very definition of unsustainable. If you miss out on him on your waiver wire, I would not be too worried about it. But yeah, definitely I think my bust this week is probably going to go to Jerome Baker. It's definitely a not a very good matchup for him against Tampa.
So I'm going to go to Green Bay, and I got to be honest with you, maybe the homer in me came out a little bit, and I still think that there's an upside for this guy. But Darnell Savage, he had a great year last year, finished strong. I want to say in IDP 1, 2, 3, he was in the top 20, top 25 of defensive backs in terms of fantasy points per game. For whatever reason, things just aren't clicking. He's missed, I think week 1, he went down to injury. He came back the following week. He hasn't been producing. Even Adrian Amos last week underperformed for Green Bay. The running back situation for the Bengals is going to be kind of dire. I don't think, in the fact that Joe Mixon probably will not be playing this week, it should be a pass-heavy game. I'm actually more enticed by the cornerback situation for Green Bay than I am the safety situation. Mm-hmm. I don't think Savage is somebody that you can reliably start week in, week out. So I'm going to say sit Darnell Savage and temper expectations for Adrian Amos this week, just because I don't see him getting that play. I don't see either of them performing well, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's going to be that's going to be an interesting game to see what they do, because I know they'll have Samaje Perine, maybe some Chris Evans, not Captain America. Yeah. Not Captain America.
I was listening to the beat reporter for the Bengals, and he was on SiriusXM the other day, and he was very high on this guy, Chris Evans. He's like, Chris Evans has it, in quote unquote, in parentheses. So
I just love those general, just meaningless intangibles that they give to players as it's like, okay, great. I don't know what that means.
Right. That is, you can find that not on Pro Football Focus or any other stat website. We got a question here really quickly before we head out from Kenny. Pick theory: AJ Brown, Deontay, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper. Deontay, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper. AJ Brown, he's still nursing an injury. Don't go near that anytime soon.
And apparently the Steelers are just going to keep having Ben throw the ball 50 times. They're just going to have him continue to throw until his arm falls off, apparently.
I guess the question is, like, who do they have better to go?
Nobody.
Nope. Yeah, exactly. Mason Rudolph. I don't want to see Mason Rudolph on the field. They don't want to see Mason Rudolph on the field. They don't want to see Dwayne Haskins on the field. Like, unfortunately, you're just going to have to eat it and hope that this running game gets going. And it's going to be a long year in the Steel City.
As much as I hate Pittsburgh, obviously, but I've always respected how they've run their franchise. It's shocking that they haven't done a better job preparing for Ben's replacement.
No,
I mean, they've been having, it's like they've had their head in the sand, like, no, he's going to play forever,
right?
And he's just been beat up so many times. I thought I heard he had been sacked like 500 times in his career. Something crazy like that. So it's like,
well, if anything can be taken away from the fluttering eyes from Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin toward each other this past weekend, maybe Aaron Rodgers is on his way to Pittsburgh after this year.
That would be a nightmare scenario for me.
Well, what if they still need an offensive line, right? So, I mean, I don't care. Rodgers has benefited a lot from having a good offensive line during the course of his career.
Yeah, but he's a little bit more mobile, a little bit more nimble, and he's got a much quicker release. And
he would have 3 fantastic, assuming Juju came back. But I don't know. We'll see. This 2021, 2022 offseason is going to be kind of interesting. All right. So anyhow, with that, that's going to wrap up our IDP edition here, Fourth and Frames. Again, you can find Mike on Twitter at Mike_Woolert, and go over to 4for4 Fantasy Football to go check out all of his IDP work. He's been doing this for years, folks. He's one of the guys I've been looking up to for years in fantasy football circles for IDP. We're very lucky to have him with us this year on Fourth and Frames IDP edition. So thank you very much for joining us this week. Nate will be back next week. So I want to give Nate some love right here. So he is in the Fantasy Pros ECR ranking competition. Well, he will be officially be entered week 8 because he got a late start to the season.
Okay.
So he's been like doing his rankings on Fantasy Pros, doing his IDP rankings. This is the second week in a row, or second week this season. He's been number 1 among all rankers, Fantasy Pros, when he's comparing his ranking results to theirs. So congrats to Nate for doing a hell of a good job with those rankings, which you can find also at fantasyandframes.com.
I'm gunning for him. I'm gunning for him this week.
Yeah. I'm sure he's listening, and I'm sure he's ready.
No, but that's awesome.
Congratulations, you guys are the best at IDP. I totally love you guys. Doing a great job. Love your work. So with that, for Mike, I'm Jorge. We will check you all out next week, folks.
Good luck in week 5, everybody.